YouTube.
You're good.
Okay, we'll call the regular city council meeting June 15th to order. Please stand and join me in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Allison.
Here.
Tom Baylor.
Here.
Kathy Sherman.
Here.
Jeff Guard.
Here.
Melina Meyer.
Here.
Ann Schaefer is absent. Kristen Carpenter.
Here.
And Ken Jones.
Here.
That's a quorum of Ken.
Confirm motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion, changes? Hearing none, with no objection, we'll approve the agenda. Disclosures of conflicts of interest and ex parte communications. Hearing none, we'll move on to communications by and petitions for visitors. We don't have any guest speakers, so we're at audience comments regarding agenda items. Anybody? Nobody rushing to the table. Chairpersons and representative boards and commissions, CCMC Advisory Board. Dr. Sanders?
I'll give a quick CCMC update. We continue to do well, although some months we're scraping by the skin of our teeth. But I do think that we're improving. For the most part, we've tried to become in network with most of the insurance carriers here in town. So if anybody finds that our system is out of network, we certainly want to know about that. Please bring that to our attention and we'll work on those contracts. We have, and I want the community to know that we have a sliding scale. It's working. People that want to apply for charity care or a sliding scale can come into the hospital. We have somebody that can meet with them and talk and make sure that we get them, anybody, regardless of insurance coverage, if people are underinsured and qualify, they can get the sliding scale and or charity care. So we don't want anybody to be avoiding care because of costs. Otherwise, I think those are kind of the only major updates. We're suffering along with everyone else with this great resignation, trying to keep staff and keep nursing staff here, and it's going okay. So, any questions?
Questions for the doctor? Thank you.
Thanks.
I think our school reps left. Is there anybody from the school online? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move on to the consent calendars before you.
I'll call the roll on the consent calendar. Jeff Guard.
Yes.
Ann Schaefer is absent. Ken Jones.
Yes.
Melina Meyer.
Yes.
Tom Baylor.
Yes.
Kristen Carpenter.
Yes.
And Kathy Sherman.
Yes.
The consent calendar is approved.
Okay, thank you. In the consent calendar, I had a proclamation of appreciation to Mike Hicks. I, Mayor David Allison, do hereby issue this proclamation of appreciation to Mike Hicks for his invaluable contribution to the citizens and city of Cordova as a long-serving member and officer of the Cordova Volunteer Fire Department, a public servant, and an unselfish and generous citizen and neighbor. Whereas Mike moved to Cordova for employment as a chief with the United States Coast Guard in 1988 and quickly involved himself in community activities. And whereas Mike served the community in various ways, after his retirement from the U.S. Coast Guard, he began employment with the city, held positions of dispatcher, community service officer, chief of police, and interim city manager. And between these varied city posts, Mike also served the community as a state of Alaska wildlife trooper. And whereas Mike joined the Cordova Volunteer Fire Department in 1989, received his firefighter designation with the state of Alaska in July of 1990, and then received his ETT, Emergency Trauma Technician certificate, in 1990. And whereas Mike became a lieutenant with the CVFD in August of 1997 and was elected chief of the Volunteer Fire Department in 2004, serving in that capacity until his retirement in April of 2022. And whereas Mike was named Firefighter of the Year in 2006, he helped save numerous lives in his capacity with Cordova Volunteer Fire Department, endured extremely stressful and dangerous situations with professionalism and grit. And whereas coworkers and friends have always been entertained by Mike's never-ending tales, he has an uncanny ability to improvise and has a story for any topic that might crop up. And whereas Mike's service to the community of Cordova and the Cordova Volunteer Fire Department extended over 30 years, with 18 of those years as elected chief of the Cordova Volunteer Fire Department, he received numerous awards, certificates, and commendations, and inspired and encouraged others to likewise serve their community. And whereas Mike and his family have sacrificed thousands of hours over the years in his call to service of and for the community. And whereas Mike has retired again, has moved on to his next adventure, and turned over his Cordova Volunteer Fire Department duties to a capable new generation. So now therefore be it proclaimed that the mayor, the city council, the city of Cordova, and the citizens of the Cordova hereby express their sincerest appreciation to Mike Hicks for his longtime devotion as chief and volunteer serving the Cordova Volunteer Fire Department, and for his overall dedication and involvement as a citizen of Cordova. Mike is truly a perfect example of thriving through service to one's community. Come on, Mike. Thank you, sir. We got a flogging coming out. Don't go anywhere.
Make him go by the flag and take a picture. Move those chairs.
Oh, it's not a good backdrop with a box.
Also, on behalf of the Cordova Volunteer Fire Department, Mike has been a father to me and taught me a lot. So for his work and sacrifice, the Cordova Volunteer Fire Department would like to present Mike with this plaque. And I know he enjoys things like this, so.
I want to say real quick, thank you for all the kind words. Can't do it alone. I've worked with a lot of professional people, gotten support from my family, friends, co-workers throughout the years of all my careers. And can't do it without good people. We've had our discussions here in council together, and I worked on some committees with a few of you guys, and it's always been a pleasure, and I always felt like the council did the best they could to support us. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
It's nice.
For a second there, I thought I was gonna be lost for words.
Didn't even say,
Got a story.
didn't say anything about your smoked cheese.
Okay. Minutes were in the consent calendar. Consideration of bids. Council approval of award for contract for city assessor and upgrade. Assessing and upgrade. To CAMA Computer Assisted Mass Appraisal System.
For purposes of discussion, move to approve. Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve. Councilmember Gard?
Getting our assessing information digitalized has kind of been on the back burner for a while. We kind of need to get away from all the little paper cards and records we have. So that is a much needed upgrade, and I will go with the managers and recommendation on who we should reward the assessing contract to. So I'm in favor.
Okay, Councilmember Baylor.
Yeah, I'd like to get a little clearer picture of the cost. On top of page 10 there, it says, as far as cost, the other proposal did not separate out the cost initial setup of the systems, which I did not see was required in the RFP, but license and maintenance. Instead, it was factored into the annual cost. The firm's overall cost for 3 years was less, but the annual cost was more than the annual cost of Appraisal Company Alaska. So I'd sure like to see those numbers and what the cost difference was. Do we have that?
Aren't these,
Page 8.
I didn't give the competitors exact numbers. I just gave what we're required to give for the memo for the approval, which was the one we are recommending. Sorry.
if I recall though, the annual number was very competitive.
45
Yeah.
a year.
At 45,000 a
years.
year. Yeah.
Well, I just think to be fair, and so council has all the information, we should have all the numbers. This is a council decision. I appreciate the input from staff, but personally, I've had business with this other company. I don't think they really do us a good job. But to be fair to both companies, we should have all the numbers and be able to make that decision.
I guess this gets back to what my understanding is of city managers, that we use the process established by code. We go through a matrix to determine who is the most responsive, and then we bring a recommendation to council. Council doesn't make a selection. That's a management decision. If you feel like you don't have enough information, we could certainly bring it back, but the proposals are proprietary, so they are not to be shared by code until after you guys make a decision. Then that could be made public, is my understanding, right?
Well, unless they determine it's
That they don't wanna
proprietary,
share.
and then we don't have to.
Yeah. So there was not a huge price differential between the proposals. And it really, I guess, gets back to, does city want to invest more significantly in assessing? Because right now we're doing it literally handwritten, there's no systematic process in place. And I think that's been one of the handicaps that the existing assessor has had. And the reason that there has been errors is that we are asking them to use basically a 19th century system in the 21st century. So with any of these respondents, it's going to cost city to upgrade the technology and establish the software and do whatever other upgrades we need to do to get that on the ground. That's, I think, the issue before council is this the kind of investment that you want to make? And the actual decision on which vendor provided the most comprehensive and best solution for city is a management decision. And I'm not sure to what extent we, I don't know how we move away from that.
Well, I support the tent wholeheartedly. I've been calling for upgrading this system for a long time. When I get my property cards and I see notes on those property cards that were made 20 years ago and talk about having a cesspool swamp in my front yard that was filled in 22 years ago, 20 years ago, and it has been corrected, something tells me that they're not doing their job. So I support that. It needs to be done. But what I would probably disagree with is it's not staff's, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it's staff's job, or staff's right to tell council which contract you're going to go with. My assumption is the reason this comes to council is so we can look at it, we can look at the numbers, because it's not always the best thing to take the lowest contractor price, but we can look at it and we can have a discussion, and we certainly take staff's recommendation in there, but we perhaps may be of another opinion. So you're not really giving us, I would even ask, why is this even before us? Because what you're telling me is take it or leave it. we're not going to have a discussion. We don't have the numbers to make an educated decision on this.
Susan, do you have that overview from Holly?
Yeah, it was a while ago when we were all very concerned about how do you do procurement? It's in charter, it's in code, it's very unclear with contracts. Well, that wasn't unclear, but we needed this little template that she made up for us that says under 25,000 or over 25,000, greater than 5 years, or can't be terminated with 1 month's notice. Or up to 5 years. And so when we look at competitive sealed proposals, which is what we chose to do on this one, we went out to proposals, not bids. And it's up to 5 years. And council approval of the procurement method, no. Council approval of notice of intent of award, no. Requires council approval of memorandum of contracts essential terms, yes, and that is what is before you. City council approval of the contract, no, because the motion that was suggested is that you were directing the city manager to negotiate the contract. We gave you the basic terms, the essential terms of the contract. And then the city manager awards and negotiates the contract after we go through those steps. So that's what's before you tonight.
So just a question for me then, will this contract that's negotiated come back to council?
No.
For approval? Or this is the approval?
Correct.
Okay.
Just like when we do vehicles, if Sam brings it to you, or the engineer for the, I think the harbor project came that way. You didn't see the other proposals. You saw what we recommended, and then the manager went and negotiated and did the contract.
Okay.
I think one thing, if I might add,
Yeah, the manager had something.
I just wanted to add that when we put out an RFP, we did it rather globally. We did it across the country because we're very aware that there are assessing firms that do this work that have national reach. And we did not get any respondents because of the size of our town. They'll respond to an Anchorage property base, but not to a Cordova size. So we were somewhat limited. We only had 3 responses. Of the 3, two responses. We sent out to 3 local Alaskan entities that would do work in Alaska. The 2 we got was one that was based in Alaska and one that's based in the lower 48, but does work in Alaska. We reviewed not only the cost, because that, while critical and important, was a factor, but not the ability to do the work to us was a huge part of the evaluation. There were 4 of us on the committee, as your memo reads, and all of us, without any question, independently came to the same conclusion. And so that's what's presented to you. And I don't know what else to say other than the way that the code is written. We're following the process, and if council has questions about other applicants, other respondents to the RFP, we only had 1, and I think we could share that information in the office. People could come in and get that information if you had concerns or questions.
Well, that could have been provided here. We could have went into executive session. So I guess.
We just have never done that. When we do RFPs, we typically.
We've approved contracts before and we've seen the bidders. I mean, I think maybe I'm wrong in this, but what I'm hearing is you could literally tell us we have a contract. It could be $100,000 more than the other guy, but well, this is the one we chose. You don't get to see the numbers, and this is what we're going to do. So
would you?
I just think as a matter of working, we should see the numbers. So I'm not going to support it. The rest may, but that's all I got to say on it. I've seen their work. I don't think they do a good job.
Okay, Councilmember Guard, you is the maker of a motion. I'll give you another shot.
Okay, we kind of alluded to this before when the city clerk was talking about stuff. We don't see multiple options when we're going out to buy a trash truck. We don't see multiple options when we go to buy a vehicle. Staff brings back recommendations for contracts to us. We can look at that. We as a body in a meeting don't have time to look at all the nuances for what we're going to get. It's not just the bottom dollars, it's what we're getting for those services, track records and stuff. And I don't think it behooves us to micromanage our manager or staff on contracts like this. We can either up or down vote what the recommendation is, but I don't think it does us any good to be micromanaging staff with this.
Okay, let's go down the list here. Schaefer's not online, right?
Correct, no.
Done. Okay, then Councilmember Sherman.
Sure, I'm in favor of this. I wanted to just make note that there's some annual costs that we're going to have to think about in terms of budget when budget comes along. I'm assuming that would be in the city clerk's budget, or would that be a non-departmental, that $40,000?
It's in the clerk's budget,
Okay.
Assessor.
And I know there aren't many choices of this type of company to work with in Alaska, but these guys, digitizing all this is an important step, and they obviously have worked with, these two groups have worked together. And I just remember when I started working for the city, the cemetery records were on pieces of cardboard with masking tape holding them together. And so this is something that needs to be done and updated and digitized, and every department is doing it in some form or another. So I'm in favor of it.
Okay, Councilmember Meyer.
I had a little bit of a question because it sounds like that it was the two companies that put in the proposal together. So one is the appraisal company, the other one is like the software company. And so are we locked into working with both of them if something came in there? Could another appraisal company use the software? I know that this next 3 years contract would be together, but are we locked into using one appraisal company forever because we spent this much money on software?
I don't think so. I think that software could be used by someone else. The guy who runs Alaska Cama Company is their tech guy. He works with another firm that does contract appraising, but I've asked them twice now, and they're not interested in doing appraising anymore. They're doing this instead. So they're doing more of we sell the software and work with appraisal company. And if you see, appraisal company has done it with 8 other cities with CAMA and done the incorporation. And I've been wanting to digitize these forever as well, but I've been cheap and sitting in my office going, will council even approve it? I'm not even going to put it in front of them. And I'm kind of glad I dragged my feet, because now they've done it 8 times and worked out a lot of kinks. So hoping that it'll go a little smoother for us. I've been in touch with other communities who are doing it. Valdez just did it this year, and she's been real happy with how it went. They put out a big RFP. They actually got a national firm to bid on theirs at like $150,000 or something. So anyway, yeah, I think that past 3 years, we could go either way with assessor. If there's anybody else doing it by then, you know.
I guess my other question too was, it said that it would be possible to get it on our website, the information in the future. So I guess my question is that not part of this bid, or is that going to be a huge component to get it online? Because I think the accessibility of people looking at their records online is probably really important.
It will be in a format that will allow us to integrate it and put it online. So one of the things that Kevin, our planner, is doing is, you know, we finalized the addressing, and we're, with this kind of data, we can layer the addressing map and the assessment maps on top of each other. So we'll be able to provide easy access for citizens to click on a lot and know who owns it and what the assessments are and what the tax liability is going to be. So that's something that we have to do internally as city, but we're well on our way towards establishing that. But this will help with that.
You know, we talk a lot about housing, and I see that that is a pretty important part to get people involved in wanting to do housing, where to build, when people start looking at lots, being able to look at a map and see where lines are
Yeah.
or see what the zoning is would be really important. So I'm definitely in favor of this. Thanks.
Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, I mean, I support this effort. I wish we would have seen both proposals' prices anyway. But I guess that being said, I'd be fine moving forward on this. I think it's an important thing for the community to do, digitizing our records. So, yeah, let's bring this into the 21st century. It's about time.
Councilmember Carpenter.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask about software. So how do the data get backed up? And if we go with one company, does that preclude city from switching to another company, say in 5 or 10 years? So how do you extract data and make it feed into another system? If you don't, I mean, is that something you well talk about with this software provider?
So the contract with Alaska Cama Company does specifically say that the data is the city's. So Andrew was involved in a phone call that Tina and I and Andrew and Kevin with the Cama Company guy. And Andrew asked the specifications that are needed for technology, and Kevin asked some questions about integrating it with GIS down the road. And we got all the answers we needed to get. And yeah, it'll be our data and in a FileMaker Pro format, which, you know, is usable for others as well, so.
Thank you.
I have a question on the budget part of this. To find out, is this is year one 2022? And what's the difference in the budget that we have budgeted for assessing and what year one has here?
Year one, you see, assessing is weird. Year one in this, to me, is the 2023 tax year, because when we had BOE in April, and really, like in July, I just got an email of the last thing they do is the sales ratio report for the state report that Tina does in July. So I would say our 2022 contract is over and they've been paid what was budgeted. So it'll be completely unbudgeted right now, but it'll count as 2023 because the work they do this fall is the assessing for the 2023 year.
So I guess what I'm saying is, are we going to need a budget modification
Oh, yes.
in 20, and that's,
The
And how-
startup
schedule.
costs, for sure.
because this isn't the only thing outside of budget that counts.
Right, I was just going to say, there's some revenue income questions that are still unresolved. We're waiting for the governor to approve the budget. That will include a potential for 3 years of back school bond debt reimbursement, which it could be used in any number of ways by council to replace permanent fund, whatever, but also as an investment in the one-time costs associated with this contract. So there'll be opportunity. I hope to have had it by this meeting, but the governor isn't there yet. So I'll have all of the revenue increases that I shouldn't say revenue, the the increases that we're going to see on the income side, I'll have all of those outlined so you have a sense of what that is, and then you guys can make a decision about how you want to use those resources, whether it's to pay for things like this and any number of other things that are kind of coming down the pike. So I have no idea when I'm going to be able to do that, but my understanding is the governor has the budget. He is going to sign it by the 20th. So potentially your first or second meeting, I would say second meeting in July, we'll have those budget amendments and we'll be able to ascertain how to pay for these sorts of things. But there are resources that are going to be available.
Okay, round two, Councilmember Guard.
I think I said my round 2 and round 1.
Okay.
So I'll pass it on.
Councilmember Baylor.
No, I'm not going to support it. I'm not in favor of this company, and I think people need to, maybe we need to take a look. I'm looking at this council approval of contracts, and it does say identify the contractor. It says contractor price, but I think we're not doing our duty to know what the second bidder is. I mean, just to leave that off the council and not have input on that is, I've been around long enough with boards and commissions to see how managers can run, and I'm not making accusations, but managers can run away with these kind of things, and next thing you know, you're spending money needlessly. But I certainly support the project, just not the company that's doing it. So, thank you.
Councilmember Sherman.
No further comments.
Councilmember Meyer.
No more comments.
Jones.
Yeah, I'm going to support this, but I do agree with some of what Councilmember Baylor is saying. I do think we have a fiduciary duty to know all the information before we make decisions on contracts, and so I would say that I agree with that. And if he wants to, pending agenda, put something on there to take a look, then maybe we should. So, thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Carpenter, last chance.
No further comments, thank you.
Okay, and I think we're ready for a roll call vote, please.
Ann Schaefer is absent. Kathy Sherman.
Yes.
Ken Jones.
Yes.
Tom Baylor.
No.
Jeff Guard.
Yes.
Melina Meyer.
Yes.
Kristen Carpenter.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-1.
Yeah, thank you. Reports of officers. Mayor's report is written in there. It's kind of a slow week after Nouveau week. It's kind of fast and furious, but I think I've forwarded you anything that was of note. So unless there's any questions, move on to the manager's report.
Just a couple of things. I don't have a written report, but I do want to share, and I alluded to it in this last conversation. We're waiting for the governor to sign the budget, and embedded within that is $3 million for the harbor, $5 million for the science center, and close to $900,000 in school bond debt reimbursement for the past 3 years when those allotments were reduced or eliminated. If he signs those things, obviously harbor is a direct allocation for that project, but the school bond debt will bring some conversation to you all to make a decision on how to proceed with those resources. So I'll know more sometime. Waiting. Senator Murkowski was in town last weekend for the Copper River Nouveau, and I met with her and NVE personnel to take a tour of the clinic and to communicate city's commitment to collaborating with NVE on securing some kind of permanent healthcare solution for the town. She was very eager to hear that news. She said there's been a lot of communities where there's just, I'm going to do my thing and we're going to do our thing, and and they don't come together. So she felt very heartened by that and felt very supportive of the notion of a collaborative healthcare solution. So that was good news. And then the final thing is, in terms of staff right now, we've done all the grant applications that we can at this moment for the harbor. So we are segueing to a new focus of our grants, housing is big. We are reaching out to everybody we know that can impact local housing solutions. And that from AHFC to Cooking-Led Housing to major players that I've worked with in my past, and they're all providing resources and input, and we'll have some updates on that. Ways that city can leverage, participate, and maybe kickstart some of these initiatives. The other areas that we're looking is infrastructure funding. We're looking at every single possible thing that we can qualify for, and so we have an active team working on identifying that. One of the things that seems to be a little bit of a conundrum for us is that some of the grants require these rather substantive plans in order to proceed. They do, in some instances, we would qualify for the planning, but we wouldn't qualify for the actual implementation. And so you got to take certain steps before you can reach the next level. So we're going to actively get involved in that. And that's pretty much where we're at right now. So that's it for my report.
I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where are we at on the Second Street project? Just curious.
I wish, well, Kevin might know.
So I don't have the exact details, but the state's still working on preliminary survey and design work. Construction still wouldn't be slated for, I believe, till 2025.
Oh, okay.
We're still a couple years out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The ski hill cable,
Yep.
where are we at on that?
So that will be coming to you at the next meeting. Again, I was kind of waiting for sources of funds so that we wouldn't necessarily have to do a draw from the permanent fund. So if some of these resources come available and when we do our budget amendments, that would be forthcoming. So again, first or second meeting in July for approval.
Okay, I'm not sure how to word it. I believe that the ski club has changed that pencil in for the contractors to do that, to ink. So if council is going to be unwilling to fund that project, which I don't anticipate that, but if it is, then the time is now to say, hold on. I know we haven't budgeted for it yet and done that, but I'm pretty sure they had to commit with the contractor to schedule that in, to get it scheduled this summer. And I think it's scheduled for late July. So anyway, that's.
And just for everyone, I heard loud and clear at the council meeting where this was discussed that there was general approval. I'm just trying to find alternative sources of funds. But and you guys can vote on whether it's permanent fund or another source, hopefully, that I have in my back pocket for you to consider. So.
Yeah.
It's a big back pocket.
Yeah, I just wanted council to be aware that I did get have a conversation with one of the representatives from the ski club, and they did tell me that they had to ink that in, and I told them I was pretty confident that council, I heard the same discussion everybody else did, that at this table that it was supported. So anyway, that's out there. So any other questions for the manager? Did you have a South Harbor rebuild update?
No, we're just kind of waiting for the state and for some of these other grants. We had applied for Denali Commission. They thought they would have word by the 10th, but we still don't have word. So until those resources are committed, we aren't able to commit to a real firm direction on the project. So we're in a holding pattern.
I guess I've got a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Jones.
Did the EDA ever come through with anything, or?
No, they've been pretty clear about the project and how the kinds of things they want to support, and we're not a good fit right at the moment.
Okay.
There might be something for phase 2, but right now we've tapped all the sources that we qualify for and that their staff has signaled that we would be a candidate for.
Okay.
When do we possibly hear about the build?
The build is fall,
Okay.
and that's how clear they are. Fall. Yeah. So, but I also know that the feds are trying to get their resources out. We're still, struggling through their paperwork process on the build grants. So, I mean, the raise grants. So, yeah, it's a process.
Okay, any other questions? You're now move on to the clerk's report.
Well, that RFP took a long time and took a lot of work, but it was, like you've all been saying, it was a good idea, and I was extremely happy with what appraisal company brought back in their, proposal versus kind of what they put in their contract each year, So it was a good exercise, I think. And then otherwise, I wrote a memo. This took me a little bit of time, too. This memo with information getting back to you guys on whether or not we want to go forward with public comment via telephone at council meetings. So I guess we're kind of looking for direction on, what, if enough of you support us moving ahead, and we'll come back with, I guess, a procedure. And Andrew's been in the loop also. And then I redid the substitute ordinance with the changes from last week. I very much do appreciate when a council member comes to a meeting planning an amendment and calls it out the way that Councilmember Carpenter did last time. That's kind of how it should go. And I think it went well, and brought back the ordinance just the right way. And I think that's it. I thank you for writing the proclamation, and I think Paul was very involved, and then I just kind of edited it a tiny bit, but that was kind of a nice thing to do for Mr. Hicks as well, so glad we were able to do that. And that's all I have. I can answer questions.
Thank you. That was mostly Paul had all the information in the file, and it was his initial idea to do that, so that was nice. I know he appreciated it, so. Councilmember Sherman, you had a question?
No, I just wanted to comment on my opinion on the call-ins. And I've been thinking about this, and we have in-person at meeting, people can comment. You can comment via email or snail mail. You can watch and listen to YouTube. If you see or hear something you don't like, you can run right down here, which is what people used to do when they listened on the radio on Clam in the old building. That's how we'd fill up. Call-in requires additional funding for both IT, staff time, I'm looking at Andrew sitting here, and technology, legal team time if we go for a call-in system. So I don't need to have a call-in line.
Councilmember Gard?
I'm just like her, except opposite of it. We have a major portion of our community that makes their living on the water and is gone during the summer. It's really hard as a fisherman to get input. I remember trying to comment on stuff before or even follow what was going on, and you had to be anchored in the right place to be able to pick stuff up. And I really like the idea of what Sitka did. I'm not interested in a free-for-all to where anybody can call in anytime as soon as they hear something they don't like going on. If that happens, they can run down. But if there's something, we put out our agendas well ahead of time. So if there's something on that agenda that's important to somebody that they need to comment, but they're going to be out in the sound or out away doing business, taking care of stuff, I think that would be a very good mechanism to let people make their wishes be known. So I'd be in favor of something like what Sitka did, to where somebody could sign up the day before, and then we could just call them and let them make their comments during the comment period.
Okay, anybody else want to weigh in? Councilmember Baylor?
Yeah, I guess I'm taking both sides of this. Councilman Sherman's points are good. But then we sit in another meeting and we talk about how we have to get more public input on our harbor design. How do we do that? And then half the fleet, well, the fleet's out on the grounds as we're discussing. And there are times, I was one of those that used to run down when you could listen on the radio. There are times you hear something and you kind of like, well, that's not right. You know, they're misrepresenting that, or this would be a better idea, and you like to call in. I don't know what the answer is, but have we, you know, as a suggestion, maybe talk with Cordova Telephone, their communications company. Is there an inexpensive way that we could set up a system? It doesn't seem like it could be pretty low tech, I would think, but I don't know what the answer is. I'd like to see it call in some kind of way, but if we can't do that, I don't know what kind of numbers we're talking about.
Councilmember Jones?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to suspend the rules and ask staff what his comment is.
Sure. Anybody have a problem with that?
What is it?
So I was just going to make a mention about some solutions that would be cost effective, but also give people the opportunity to make that beforehand. Putting a dialogue box on the website under the council meeting section, making it so they have to put a name and then email with the comment that they're going to make. And then they can have a Zoom link sent to them. So that way, if we know beforehand that we need to have a Zoom set up so that they can connect in, then they'll have the opportunity to connect as long as they have data wherever they may be in the sound. Going through CTC or Copper Valley was out for over 24 hours. CTC might not have, you know, connectivity cellular-wise in a lot of the portions. But also doing Polycom as it is, having council members connect in costs a significant amount of money every minute that it's on, whereas Zoom is totally free. So.
I'm not a Zoom professional by any stretch, but I think you can just call into Zoom too. I don't think you need to have data.
You don't have to have data. You can do call-in as well. The only thing that I'm fearful of is the integration of having YouTube running with our broadcasting software, as well as having people hear properly on Zoom. May have to provision a second laptop or figure out a way to do it all through one, but we can figure that out.
Which I think is why we went with this whole second phone when we kind of scrambled. It was something to do with the audio because council members were online, plus the mics and YouTube. So you're saying simple, but it sounds very complicated.
I can figure something out though.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great.
So we've got 1.5 to 1.5 right now. Councilmember Jones?
Yeah, so I support this. I was one of the ones who brought this up. I think that, like what Councilmember Gard was saying, you know, big portion of our population fishes in the summer, and I do think that some of the decisions that are being made at this table, there are fishermen who would like to weigh in a little bit more and can't just come down and show up in the room. If they were, they would have to forego some of their income potential, like I do when I want to come to the meetings in person. So, you know, skip openers or you know, maybe not anchor up on your spot early for a low water in the morning or something. But I would support doing, you know, kind of like what we had during COVID. I think that if you want to call in, even if you hear about it day of, you should be able to call in. I don't know what the solution would be, but I am in support of evaluating it and moving forward with a solution in the future whenever staff finds a solution. So,
Councilmember Meyer?
Yeah, I'm in favor of it. I think it's a accessibility thing as well. Some people just don't feel comfortable writing, handwriting, not being able to come in. I haven't probably heard a large population saying that, but I just think having that available to the community members, being able to communicate in different forms would be beneficial. And the first thing that I thought it was Zoom. You know, I think that would be easy because people can call in. A lot of people are pretty familiar with it after the last couple of years. And maybe even looking into council members calling in. I don't know what that would take, but I think just thinking of those options of being able to have the community and kind of just having that available. I'm also in favor of people being able to call in the day of and not necessarily the day before, but whatever we need to do to have that available as a procedure and just kind of work towards something that's more streamlined, I think the better.
Councilmember Carpenter?
Of coming up with some kind of mechanism for allowing people to comment, because, yeah, it seems like what we've learned through the pandemic is that we can make technology work to happen. So if staff can help us find cost-effective solutions, I am definitely in support of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Gard?
This is more of a procedural question. We're kind of treating
We're trying
the
to
report as an action item. Do we need to move what we're doing to the agenda?
Staff was asking for direction on whether to proceed with spending time on this issue or don't spend time on this issue. We're not making a decision here. We're just giving staff direction on do we want to keep going. It sounds to me like we want to keep exploring some options and bring it back when we have a solid solution. Does that sound right?
And one, you don't have to answer it now, but like Councilman Meyer said, I'll be gone like next meeting. Can I call in on Zoom? Can council, if it's free? I know the Cordova telephone board does Zoom. You don't have to answer that now,
Yeah,
but
I was going to say, I don't know.
yeah, I know they do. Their board uses Zoom meetings all the time. And if it's free, I'm in on that.
I think the free one, from what I know about Zoom anyway, the free version only lets you have a half an hour.
40 minutes.
At least I know with my church board, we have to finish our meeting so that we get it in the free time. But I don't know what it costs to do the professional version either.
It's not that expensive. I think, and this gets back to legally, because we have to have an open forum and we need some semblance of security. And again, the technology exists and it's just managing it. And that's why we have people like Andrew who understand how to provide the protections that the public needs so that individuals don't call in saying there's someone they're not. And how do we make all of that work? And there's a lot to be considered, but we can delve deeper if you guys want to pursue this. We'd be happy to dig in and see what other communities are doing and what the opportunities are here for us.
Yeah, my take from council is that council's direction is to continue looking for a solution to that.
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to mention too, I know the security was kind of brought up during the pandemic when we talked about just using Zoom. And, you know, I saw state boards using Zoom, other boards using Zooms, and they did breakout sessions and had executive sessions in Zoom. I just don't want us to be limited by that fear so much of using a platform like that, and just know that those things can come up. I mean, they can come up with the most secure network. People get hacked and stuff. So I just, I just don't know that we're not Fort Knox for our meetings, you know?
We haven't changed our call-in number in 5 years.
Yeah.
So I think staff understands that
Yes.
direction. Any other questions for the clerk? Okay, correspondence, a couple of letters regarding the Harbor Commission. I think we're on that path. So, item 14, substitute ordinance 1200. An ordinance of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, amending section 11.08.020 of the Cordova Municipal Code to increase the number of Harbor Commission members from 5 to 7 on first reading.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved Baylor, seconded Guard. Councilmember Baylor.
Yeah, I'll support it. I think it's the right direction, and I spoke to several members on the Harbor Commission, and they seem to support it, so I'm good with that. And this is a footnote. The Harbor Commission did have a meeting last Wednesday, and they did talk about the harbor remodel, and nobody showed up. except for the Harbor Commission guy. So I think this is a good way to go. I support it.
Councilmember Gard.
I'll also support it. I think we talked this out last time we delved into this, so the more bodies we can get in there to help with what we've got going on now, I think the better off we are. If we find at a later date that 7 is too many to make a quorum, we can do the same thing in reverse later.
Councilmember Jones.
Yep, I'll support it as written. Yeah.
Councilmember Sherman.
Yes, I'm in support.
Councilmember Carpenter.
Support it.
Councilmember Meyer.
Yeah, I'll support it. I think that it's a good move. I wasn't at the last meeting, but I was kind of thinking that we could put something in there that just said at least 5, so it didn't have to be changed in the future. But I think it's a good move. I think that there's seems to be a lot of interest in the Harbor Commission the last few years since I've been on council. I think there's always been an extra person or two that have put in their name for open seats. And then, you know, just kind of get more people involved. And even though people maybe don't show up to the Harbor Master or the Harbor Commission meetings, I think having it on YouTube has been really useful. I was one of, I think, 3 that was watching the last council meeting or the last Harbor meeting. So, you know, I think if we change some of these things on council, maybe we can put them to these other commissions that make them more accessible to the community, because I think it would be really beneficial, not just for the Harbor Commission, but we do have other boards and commission that I think getting the community more involvement would be great. So I will support it.
Okay, any last comments? Sounds like unanimous support, so.
I guess I'd have one more comment. It's not going to change anything, but I do want to see us, you know, it's kind of always been it's not codified, but it's kind of been the unspoken rule is to serve on the Harbor Commission that you're an actual paying customer of the harbor. So I would like to see us, I mean, that's for as long as I can remember anyway, when we're evaluating people to put on there, it's, you know, do they actually have a stall? Do they use the harbor? So I would like to see that continue. I would also like to see that codified at some point if we even can, but I don't know if we can or not, but just wanted to bring that up as we move forward and fill these 2 seats, just to consider that we actually get people on there that use the harbor. So, thanks.
Anything else on there? I use my executive privilege, I guess, to just make a comment on item G, page 21. Just because it's different than what we do in practice. I believe it's item G. That they submit their plan and fee schedule and all that kind of stuff in March of each year. And we typically do that in November. But I don't know that formally has to be changed, but I know we didn't get it in March this year. We got it in November of last year or December. So anyway, are we ready to vote? Is this a voice?
Not yet.
Go ahead. Who's online?
Thank you. This is Kristen.
Okay, go ahead, Kristen.
Now, I just wanted to ask Councilmember Jones, does that mean that you think people who pull their boat out every period and keep it on a trailer shouldn't be allowed to participate on the Harbor Commission?
I would certainly say that they have less of a vested interest than somebody who pays for multiple stalls or a stall or as a houseboat in the harbor or their rec boat in the harbor year round and actually uses the facilities year round. I mean, they may pay a $75 ramp fee, but yeah, I would say that they have less of a vested interest in the facility.
Councilmember Gard.
Yes, I don't see us taking them for a paid play facility, but we can talk about that another time. Thank you.
Yeah, council always gets to concur with or change the mayor's appointment, so that's always a prerogative of council who goes on those commissions. So Councilmember Gard.
Yeah, I think the reason that and it's, you can call it unwritten or whatever, but the people that are going to have the most interest in it that you're going to get wanting to put in the time are people that use the harbor heavily. But it is a community asset. So I don't think we could very well say, you know, anybody that's a community member doesn't have the right to put in for the commission and try to spend the time on it. But I think it's probably going to even itself out without trying to say who's good enough and who's not good enough. It's pretty well going to be the folks that use the harbor that are going to have the most interest in it. But I have issues with saying only people that
Right. Constitutionally, we probably.
are blue or green have the right to do this.
And just a quick note, it's probably worth noting too, that commercial fishermen do pay, 0.5% of their gross, or what, you can clear me on that, and that goes directly into the harbor, remodel, and somebody like me pays $100 a year just to use so it's a big difference. Yeah.
Okay, are we ready to vote? All those in favor of substitute ordinance 1200 on first reading, say aye.
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 Right.
Oppose? Motion carries unanimously. We will have a public hearing and a second reading at our next meeting.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna try and help you out here. I would move ordinance 1201 of the city of Cordova, Alaska as written on page 27 of our council packet.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to amend our building codes.
I didn't want you to have to read all that.
I have one issue with as written.
Yes, sir.
There's a small typo on page 45, paragraph F, first line, fifth word in. I think we want to grant somebody something and not grant them.
Was that repeal and replace, or was that from the existing code?
Either way, we can fix it.
Yeah, we will.
Okay, Councilmember Baylor.
Well, I would love to hear from the city planner. They've been working on this for years, before him and after him. Oh,
Kevin, you're up.
Yeah, so as you all probably know, this has been going on for over 5 years now. The earliest writings about this that I saw with the Planning Commission go back to 2016, although I do believe there was discussions before that. Our code as written references the Uniform Building Code, which many of you probably know has not been in existence since the mid-90s. So it is about time that we update this to not only reference existing codes, but to clarify when a permit's needed, how you get the permit, and the responsibilities of both the city and the person receiving the permit. So as part of that, there was also some items that had to be moved around. That's why there's some changes to Title 18 associated with this as well. The largest item being that in Title 16, we had a site plan review process, which didn't make sense to have in the building code section because it's more of a zoning review related to buildings. So there was a update in Title 18 to the site plan review process, whether it's an administrative review or a commission review. Other than that, the rest of the Title 18 changes are pretty minor, just some stuff that legal saw that they just wanted to change while we were doing a code update, as well as removing all the references to the removed items in Title 16.
And this was approved by the Planning Commission last night, could you?
Yes, this was approved by a resolution at the Planning Commission last night. With, I guess, did you mention the minor change that they had recommended with the whereases?
So this was published for your packet prior to the Planning Commission meeting last night, and there were a change in the resolution, the ordinance.
Yeah, and I believe Holly's with us, so she can correct me if the Planning Commission was incorrect with their thoughts. But if you look at the first two whereases, the first one talks about that the state repealed some building codes in 2001, but then if you go to the second whereas, it says that they were repealed by the state in 97, and we are pretty certain that that was just a mix-up carryover from the first whereas, where that should actually just read that Title 16 has not been updated since 1997, or it was last updated in 1997. So Planning Commission, as part of their recommendation, wanted to have those whereases switched positions and the words the repeal by the state be struck.
This is on the second whereas, Title 16?
Correct.
So that would read, whereas Title 16 has not been updated
Since 1997.
And is there another amendment that you were looking at?
No, that was the,
Well, and they wanted to put that second whereas.
yeah, just put the second whereas as the first whereas. They just thought it made more sense in that order.
So I'll make that motion to amend. I think everybody understands it.
Second.
And that's not a substantial
No.
change. Okay, any discussion? Baylor?
No, I think he
On the
explained it
amendment?
well.
Guard? Anybody have any questions on the amendment?
No question.
Okay, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Oops, sorry. Unanimous, approve that. So now we're back at the main motion as amended. Any,
Just got one quick question. So was this, and did Plan and Zoning do all of this, the heavy lifting, or did you pay? How did that go down?
No, it was a collaborative effort between Planning Commission and myself. We had quite a few meetings where we pretty much went through the code page by page and redlined it. Then I worked updating it, brought that back to Planning Commission, where then they approved it to move forward to have it written up as an ordinance. So then I worked with legal to get that, to get this version that was then brought back to them for their resolution to recommend it to you.
Okay, I bring that up because if memory serves me right, there was, a few years ago, there was a request to get this updated, and they're requesting like $30,000 to pay the legal team. So I want to congratulate you and the Planning Commission for taking this on and doing that. That's great work.
Yeah, and the legal team definitely put in some non-paid time on this just because of how many years this has been kicking around. So we did get a little bit out of them that way.
Well, thank you. I'll support it.
Councilmember Sherman, you made the second?
Yeah, I'm totally in favor of this. I know how long it has been on the docket, and I just really commend Kevin and the Planning Commission and for all the hard work that they did getting this done. And now I hope we can start Title IV.
Member Jones?
I will support this.
Councilmember Guard?
Yeah, I will support this. It's time to move on to a real building code that, without having a building safety department, I think by law, we're supposed to follow what the state code is. And we haven't been there for a long time, so it's time to be there.
Councilmember Carpenter?
Yeah, I'm in support of it. It seems like there are a lot of, the word, I want to say updates or improvements, but ways to make the whole process more efficient, like referring to the state code so that ours is automatically considered updated as the state does their code. So yeah, it seems like there's been a ton of work put into this, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yeah, I'll support this. I did have one question. For somebody listening in on this meeting that maybe want to go down to the process of doing something in their home, updating it, does any of these changes, or how does it affect somebody, a Cordovan?
Yes, so we limited the when a permit is required, so it is tailored to a building permit would be required if you are building a new structure, if you're doing a structural modification to an existing structure, if you're expanding the footprint of an existing structure, or modifications to commercial and industrial buildings.
And so with these updates too, it helps them be able to look for a location to fit in with codes. I guess that's what I'm saying, like, because what we had before was old and outdated. So I'm just trying to think of ways that somebody listening in that just sees all these numbers and it makes their head kind of be like, I don't know what to do with this.
Call Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, it's you could either obviously, contact the planning department, but it also does in here just state that we are in line with the state building code. And if you do a quick Google search, it brings you to what the current code is. And so then you would just go along with using that version of what code the state's on current. Yeah.
Right, thanks.
Okay, last chance.
Oh, I got a question now.
Go ahead, Tom.
So you brought up something, so if you're gonna do something on your house that doesn't require a code, residing your house doesn't require a building permit.
No.
Correct? So how does that work with if I want to come in and I want to get the tax exempt? Do I still have to, because previously you had to get a building permit, pay your tax exempt card up front, and you're good to go. So are we eliminating that building permit cost? Do you just buy a tax exempt card? How's that?
So I guess there'd been some thought and discussion about that. The code doesn't necessarily not allow the city to issue a permit for other items, but you're only required to get one for certain items. So, I don't know if we want to change the, tax exempt code, to address that or something like that. But as this code's written, it says that. Sorry, one moment. Yeah, so let's see. Building and structures may not be constructed, structurally improved, structurally modified, or enlarged within the city unless a building permit has been issued by the city planner approving construction, improvement, or modification. And then there's another portion which talks about the commercial aspect of it as well. So like I said, it doesn't, I guess it doesn't necessarily limit the city from being allowed to issue a permit for other work, but it's only saying that it's required for certain work.
I guess my suggestion would be that if you're going to come in and get a tax exempt card, that you're going to side your house, which doesn't require a building permit, I think you should also be required to get the building permit so the city knows what you're doing and where this tax exempt is going. And I don't know if you guys have thought that one through or not.
Well, the tax exempt code says that you have to have a building permit to get the tax card. So if you want the tax card, you have to get a building permit.
Regardless what the project is.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my
Yeah,
question.
and
Good.
the tax exempt code also states that, that it has to be for items that are permanently part of the house.
Right.
So you're not using it for like a new water heater or something like that.
So that didn't change.
That did not change, no.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Okay, is that good? Everybody good? Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I've got a question. You mentioned any commercial building, any modification at all. Is that new? Because I thought it was under the same rules as, if you're changing, like you said, if you change the size, if you change the structure at all.
Yeah, so the thought with that is, if you want to do something stupid to your house, that affects you. But when it comes to commercial buildings, the public is going to be in those buildings. And so if you're going to be doing changes to those need to be permitted and then would then require you to do it by code.
Right, but like if you want to paint a wall inside your restaurant, you have to go get a building permit?
No,
You said any change. So.
that's not what it says.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess we're trying to revitalize our Main Street district. I don't want to see us hamper those efforts by adding red tape to commercial users. I mean, did that exist before, or is it something that's been added?
That was additional language because, like I said, it's for the protection of the public.
Hmm.
Yeah. I guess I'll comment on that. Well, on that part of it, you're going to use, hopefully you're using licensed, bond, insured contractors on a commercial building, and they're required to follow the code. So it's just reinforcing the fact that they do have to. But my question is, so are we requiring inspections?
So the code was rewritten in a way that inspections, I have to see what the wording is, but basically I worked with legal to have it written in a way that because the city does not have the staff or the appropriate knowledge to do those inspections, that the onus is on the builder or owner or whatever to either follow the code and do the inspections as required.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the city's not requiring a inspection report. So if
we can request it. The code allows us to request it if we feel that it's necessary, but it's not required to be submitted.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've always been a proponent that, especially on new housing, that they should be inspected and passed and put in. I've seen too many homes with stuff that wasn't built to code that does put people in danger. But if that's what they decide to do, I'd go with that.
This is first reading, and it will come before council as a public hearing and a second reading. So, time to ponder and
Thank you once
talk to
again
people.
for taking this on.
Yeah, just one
Councilmember
real
Byrd.
quick comment. Our process for acquiring a building permit is not very long or onerous, so I don't think we're putting any roadblocks into revitalizing Main Street or that. I mean, it's not like dealing with the building safety department in Anchorage or anything.
Amen.
It's pretty simple and easy. So I don't know that we're really stifling any business doing it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I think you are. I mean, for the way that I understood the way he said it is any modification whatsoever to a commercial space. So when I want to go put siding on the front of my building, now I got to go get a building permit.
So I spoke generally in that statement. The code doesn't say that. But when there is work done to a commercial building that does require approval by the state, so structural things and things like that, then we won't issue a building permit in those instances. If you want to come in and get a building permit for doing non-structural work on a commercial building, you need to get a permit, but you don't necessarily have to go through that state review component.
Yeah, I guess I just understood it as if you're making major modifications, you have to get a permit. But if you're painting a wall or changing some siding, sprucing up your storefront, I mean,
siding can be pretty important on commercial buildings. You get water leakage and that creates structural deficiencies. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that siding on a commercial building is necessarily minor.
Okay.
He's right.
Yeah, but I don't think you should stifle any work. I mean, anything that we can get done in this town to improve it. So.
Well, I agree with that, and I was just making one comment that the codes, building codes, most of them are written in blood. There's a reason they're there. Somebody got hurt, injured, or killed. And I'm a firm believer in making sure that contractors follow the code, so.
Almost everything's a life safety issue and
Yeah.
it's all a safety issue.
Okay. Well, again, you've got time to look at this and think of changes if you think there needs to be any. So,
Call for the
Councilmember Meyer.
question.
Oh, I guess just one last comment when we're talking about commercial. You know, Cordova is filled with a lot of different type of commercial. So I don't know. I can see both points, and I don't know that there would have to be necessarily a lot of change in this. But, you know, some of these commercial buildings don't have any employees. They don't have it's not open to the public necessarily. But it would probably still be considered a commercial building. So I guess during the discussion of changing that for commercial to be separate from residential, was there any discussion on what type of commercial falls under that?
I mean, the building codes themselves are pretty clear of what defines a commercial building versus a residential building. And it's not just the general public that's being protected, it's worker safety as well. Because, I mean, you don't necessarily have a choice of how the building was constructed, but you have to work somewhere. So.
And again, this is the state building codes that we are now following, which is part of the uniform, well, not the uniform, what is it?
The ICC.
ICC.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are adopting, sort of like what we did with COVID, we're adopting to follow the state. We're adopting to follow the state with some modest, minor adjustments, which Kevin articulated. So.
Well, just to address that, and even if the code does spell out a lot of things, and if you have a commercial office building and there's only going to be 4 people, 5 people walking into it, that even affects the door swing. You can have a door that swings in. If you have more people, you have to have a door swing out. So it does help you along those ways and what you need to do. But I know what you're saying is we're really trying to get started, sometimes from nothing, but I can say I've found city planning department very easy to work with over the years. So.
Okay, last chance, last call. All those in favor of ordinance 1201 as amended, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're gonna have a public hearing next time, huh?
Kenny, you do everything right anyway. It's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, I know.
Don't ask, don't tell.
I just, there's only one building on Main Street that is to code. We're sitting in it. So.
I know.
Unfinished business, none. New and miscellaneous business, pending agenda. What do we got on the pending agenda? It's comments, submitting comments to the Copper River Highway thing. We did get something in the mail on that. I forwarded an email today to you through the clerk, and there's something in the mail that I think she'll scan and send.
I'll put it in the correspondence next time.
Okay. And there's some links to comments on that. I think the state is probably the appropriate place to get them to apply for some of that infrastructure money for our bridge. It's probably the last chance we'll have it getting enough money to fix our road out to 51 Mile. But I'd like to see maybe a resolution or something on the agenda next time from council supporting that project. I know we all support it, but and they know we support it. But you get that officially on the record that we do that.
Okay, wait. So what do you want exactly? A resolution supporting
requesting infrastructure money for the Copper River Highway.
Repairs to mile 51.
Okay.
To both I guess to the state and to that, what do they call it, the Copper River Highway Committee or whatever, what do they call that thing?
Master Plan, Transportation Master Plan Committee.
Yeah. So we've got budget revisions for the second meeting in July, probably, right?
We hope. I'm making no promises. Until the governor signs that thing, we are in a waiting.
Earlier in our workshop, there was a request for a resolution to the legislature. I'm not sure if now is the proper time with the legislature just getting out, but if we don't do it soon, we might forget. If council is willing to do a resolution to the legislature on opioid, what did he call it? Justice for,
Yeah.
what did she call that?
Drug-induced homicide laws,
Yeah.
Okay.
stricter.
Can we put that on the pending agenda for maybe fall? We would want to do it so they could, if they're going to pre-file bills, I guess, they do that before December. The legislature likely not going to meet again until January.
Well,
These on general topics.
well, yeah, it kind of ties in with the whole, and I was going to ask Dr. Sanders when she was here, but the test strips, maybe others feel differently than I, but I think the test strip should just be readily available to anyone, just like we have COVID tests now. And I don't know, is that a,
I think they are, quite frankly. I know at Alonca, which I go to have a
the test strips for the opioids?
but yeah, the test strips and the Narcan
Okay.
tests are readily available. You just got to ask them for one and they'll give it to you.
I thought she
And
was
one
saying
of the
they're
things that we are acknowledging is that we haven't communicated very well. And so the hospital, clinic, and city will have a communications campaign strategy to get the word out about the various things that are available, including training. So we'll get that going here soon.
I'm pretty sure right now you can go to either
Yeah.
one of the clinics.
So there's a
and get 'em.
supply of test strips?
There's plenty,
Okay.
plenty.
I
It's just that people
misunderstood.
don't know where to get them.
Okay, I
And we need to help people understand where they can find it if they
Can I
need
ask
them.
one question about that?
Yep.
If we're trying to make this as widely used as we can, is there going to be reluctance by folks that need to have this information about whether there's fentanyl in their drugs or not, by having to walk up to a hospital or some place of authority to acquire this, so somebody's going to see them and do that? I don't know if there's,
Well, I will tell you that I'm going to be one of those people walking up because I want to make sure that I'm armed with the appropriate response. So hopefully there'll be no stigma, but I think
the
we'll make
fentanyl-
sure they're available in other places. So,
okay. I just want to see them as widely used as we can.
yeah.
And if there's a way to anonymously get those fentanyl test strips in somebody's hands, I'd be
Put a
in favor of it.
dispenser in the harbor master bathroom.
Yep, I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
There'll be kits, these red kits, somebody else. Oh, Kristen, I think you mentioned you saw it on APRN. Southeast has resources available, and they're putting these red boxes together, which will be placed in harbors and in fish processing plants to anonymously get access to any of these resources we've been discussing. And they'll be here on the 28th, so just 10 days or so away.
Anything else on the pending agenda? Nope.
I don't know, I was gonna say this for council comments, but I guess it's kind of on the line of what we were just talking about, is kind of grief training. When these things happen to our community, it's widespread, and I don't know, just kind of something to keep on our minds while we're talking about prevention or training or any of the stuff that we talked about. While I was going to school, several things happened where they brought in grief counselors, but they didn't last very long. It was for like the afternoon, and then it's like, see you later. But just something to think in mind while we're talking about all this and looking at funding. It would be beneficial.
Can I say one thing for pending agenda? In previous years, sometimes we go to one meeting a month because, some council members maybe have been fishermen, but especially like the comments that you guys have been making about how the fishermen are out on the grounds and whatever, and you're worried about the public missing things. I mean, you might consider one meeting a month, one of the months in the summer, if, to avoid the public missing the meetings as well. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I think it's in code that we can decide at the first meeting of the month if we're going to have a second meeting of the month.
That's what it
Isn't that
says.
what the code says?
Yeah, we've broken that though before.
I'm just pointing it out.
I can write an ordinance that breaks code. Anyway, I'm not saying cancel anything coming up. I'm just saying something to think about if you're feeling as though the public is out on the grounds unable to call in.
Sure.
Yeah, but if we have business that needs to be done, we have business that needs to be done, and we don't want to just put it on a back burner, especially if we can make other accommodations to make sure people have all opportunities.
But I've heard council members say, well, I really want to be for that meeting, so push that off until fall when I'll be back. So how is that fair to the public who maybe wants it in July, not in November? I'm just,
No, that has happened. Yeah, point well taken.
and the Sitka code, I mean, I really don't know how we're going to write this code because the Sitka code, they tackled way more than just that. I mean, they have where council members can only do 4 by teleconference or by remote a year. And you can't have more than 2 in a row.
I'm in trouble.
We'll figure it out.
I don't think we need to mirror everything of theirs, but I thought said I was afraid of a free-for-all on phone and overloading phone stuff. So I thought the signing up the day ahead of time, because you're going to have the packet out and the information out. You can get it digitally ahead of time, however. And it doesn't stifle anybody from being able to comment, but it does kind of put
Accountability.
it puts rails on it so it doesn't end up blowing up and we have a 11 o'clock or midnight meeting like we've been known to have at different times in the past.
From my observation, we don't get near enough comments from the public currently as it is. As you see the audience sitting out there today. And if there's an issue that comes up that is important enough for 50 people to be out there in an audience, I think that council should take the time to listen to those 50 people, even if we have to, sometimes Anchorage doesn't get through public comments for 3 weeks before they actually finally get to start discussing something because they have so many comments on it, but we haven't been in that problem yet. And,
Hot button issue.
But actually, Anchorage only started having those 3-week-long meetings when they started allowing telephonic because of COVID.
Also, with the phone calling in, maybe it's something we can explore and figure out before we write code to what we have to do. I think that the code part maybe could be less on the list.
Yeah.
What? No. We will need code in place in case the technology fails.
Well,
And if we have the ability to call in and then the technology fails, we've broken Open Meetings Act. So we absolutely
we will need the
cover
code.
ourselves.
The city will need the code, but we don't need, I guess we don't need the cart before the horse. We need to decide what we're gonna do, and then we can decide how we're gonna implement that. If it's gonna be Zoom, if it's gonna be something else, let's figure out what we're gonna do, and then we can figure out how to get the code to work for
So
us.
then do you think we need a work session or a discussion item on it to hash it out before we go and write code? Because that's what we're going to need to do.
Well, I think staff needs to figure out the best, give council some options.
Okay.
And then council can decide, yeah, the Zoom option sounds the best, even if we're gonna have to spend a $500 a year fee or whatever that is, and that's the best, and then we can go work on the code.
We're not the only community facing this, and I'm
Right.
sure there's some good solutions out there. We just need to explore them a little bit.
Can I just quick comment on that? Would it be an option, since everybody has communication these days, if we're kind of concentrated on the flats, they all have phones, could we not set up a system where they can either text or email the mayor and you could read the comments? And, if it's time for public comment and all of a sudden you get 6 emails, we just stop and you read their comments,
That can be an option that they explore.
That's what I'm saying, seems like that would be a cheap thing to do. Just have one phone set up for that. one phone can collect multiple emails and multiple texts.
That's an option that they consider. They heard that and they can consider that, I would think. Anything else for the pending agenda? Anything else, anybody, hot topics you want to discuss in the next couple of weeks? Seems like the time between meetings, you know, as the mayor, I guess I've learned that I guess I take the staff's perception now, there isn't a whole lot of time between, you know, there's only 1 week really between when the packet has to be in before the next, sometimes there's an extra week in there because of the dates times fall, but oftentimes we're sitting here and making a decision on a Wednesday and thinking there's 2 weeks before the next meeting, and there might be, but there's only a week before that packet has to be put together.
But this particular month, we do have a 2-week break, so
Yeah,
there's some things we
but
can pull
then
together.
we like have guests coming to town, or we go
Yeah.
have medical or something, so
Yeah.
then it eats up that week anyway.
And we have an audit coming.
There's lots going on. Okay, so pending agenda, beat that horse.
Yes.
Okay.
We did.
Down to audience participation. Tony? Kevin's already spoke. Okay, so we're good. Council comments. Let me find a list. Councilmember Carpenter.
We don't have any comments. I appreciate the staff working on, I have a comment, on trying to make it possible for public participation in the meeting. And thanks to the planning staff for all the work on the code revision. I think that's a great leap forward. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Baylor.
Yeah, thanks to the Planning Commission, well done. That's been a long time project. I think I was looking at that 10 years ago. Well, thank you.
Councilmember Guard.
Yep, my hat's off to the Planning Commission and the Planning Department. And other than that, I think you guys have heard too many comments from me tonight already, so I will close down at that.
Councilmember Meyer.
Yeah, I just really appreciate the work session and all the information that we got, and I just hope that we continue on. We've gotten a lot of reports about things, and things have gone by the wayside from time, so I just want to say that it was really good to have that discussion, and hopefully that we can keep having it and keep it kind of on the front of our mind before prevention. Prevention is kind of key, and so doing these things to prevent things is, I think, the best way to go. And happy to expand the Harbor Commission. I think having a couple more voices on there would be good, and the 5 that we've gotten has been good too, so thanks.
Councilmember Sherman.
No comments.
Councilmember Jones.
No comment.
Okay, leaves that one last.
One more comment. Move to adjourn.
Moved, is there a second?
All for the question.
All those in favor, say aye.
Bye.
Thank you, Kristen, for being online with us.